What is magnesium? Your inorganic salts, so without carbon, are less bioavailable. It's around 60% elemental magnesium. And what it does is it forces water from the rest of your body into your intestines. And the water in there helps to soften the stool. Now, before we begin, I want to say that I am not a doctor. I am not a professional at this, all right? So the advice given here is strictly for educational purposes only. Please consult with a medical professional before starting, changing, stopping, whatever, any supplement program. All right, we got a great question from Backup for America Informed. Someone help me. There's a million kinds of magnesium. I am a vegetarian and don't get any in my diet. So which do I buy? Well, we're here to help. Backup for America Informed. Thank you so much for the question. So first of all, what is magnesium? Well, it is an alkaline earth metal. So on the periodic table, it is in the same class as calcium, strontium, beryllium, barium, and radium. So it is involved in a multitude, hundreds of reactions in the body. It also helps to regulate other processes in the body, such as bone development. It's right up my alley since I used to have osteoporosis, controlling blood sugar via insulin, energy production, muscle contraction, blood pressure. The list goes on. So very important for a lot of different processes in the body. So you mentioned you're a vegetarian. You say you don't get any in your diet. Now, I don't know what your diet consists of, but magnesium is primarily found in non-meat sources of food. Green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes. I always love that word, legumes. If you're looking for meat sources, I know you're vegetarian, but maybe you eat fish. Well, I believe it's also relatively high in mackerel, in salmon, for example. So my mom always says, eat your greens, so you get your magnesium in there. With regards to dosage, for women, it's right around 300 to 350 milligrams, if I remember correctly. For men, it's around 400 to 420 milligrams per day. Now, that's the recommended amount. So the amount that we actually need depends on us as individuals. So I would say at least get in that amount. With all that out of the way, we get to the crux of your question, which is supplementation. Now, you go to Amazon, you go to Walmart or other big box retailers, you go to your GNC vitamin shop, your mom and pop vitamin stores, you're going to see a multitude, numerous forms of magnesium. So in general, they can all be labeled or fall under the category of what's called magnesium salts. Now, in terms of chemistry, a salt is when you take a positive molecule, so a cation, and then you combine it with negative molecule, an anion. All right. Now, salt, your table salt, sodium chloride, is a salt as well. You have sodium, which is positive, your cation, and chlorine, which is negative, your anion. So table salt is a salt. So we have magnesium salts here, like at the top. You go down, as a subcategory, so to speak, of magnesium salts, you have organic and inorganic salts. So organic contain carbon. Inorganic, they don't contain carbon. So a general rule of thumb, at least through the research that I read, is that your inorganic salts, so without carbon, are less bioavailable than your organic form. So bioavailability or bioavailable is like the 50-cent SAT word, meaning the ability for your body to use the nutrients. Inorganic form we're going to talk about today is magnesium oxide. So it's magnesium, again, your cation, oxygen, your anion. So positives and negatives of it. Positive is, with magnesium oxide, it's very high in elemental magnesium. In fact, of all the magnesium salts that I read about and that I know of, it is the highest form, or has the most amount, I should say, of magnesium, any other magnesium salt. It's around 60% elemental magnesium. So if we take a capsule or a tablet, let's say of 500 milligrams of magnesium oxide, you're going to get about 300 milligrams of actual magnesium. So that's good. Another positive of magnesium oxide is cheap. Depends on the brand and the formula and everything, but in general, magnesium oxide is like the cheapest form of magnesium. So that's good as a consumer. I have a supplement company, but I'm also a consumer as well. I don't have a lot of money. Things are expensive these days, so to have a supplement, in this case magnesium, that is cheaper on the pocketbook or less impact on the pocketbook, that's a good thing. Now, as a supplement company owner, magnesium oxide is beneficial being a cheap form in terms of cost, because it's less money for me to get a product produced, and I can still have magnesium in the product. So on both sides, it's a positive. Now, the downside, the negative, or I'll say negative question mark, or as my son would say, negative question marked, is bioavailability. It's an inorganic form of magnesium, or inorganic salt form of magnesium. There was a number of documents saying that, it's only 4% bioavailable. And then there's other documentation I read saying, it's the bioavailability of it is not as good as other inorganic forms, and especially it's not as good as the organic salt forms of magnesium, but it's more than 4%. So kind of question mark, because even though it may not be as bioavailable as other forms of magnesium, there's also a lot of it. So even though it's less, it still may be more magnesium than other forms. That's an option. Just wanting to put it out there that is a quote-unquote negative of magnesium oxide. Next on the list is magnesium citrate. So it's magnesium, again, your cation, with citric acid. That's the anion. So citric acid has carbon in it. Organic salt form. So the positive of magnesium citrate is your bioavailability goes up. And then we go to the negatives. Again, this could be negative with the question mark. Magnesium citrate is about 11% roughly elemental magnesium. So we take the 500 milligram capsule example that we used, roughly 50 to 55 milligrams of that is actual magnesium. Again, question mark, because it's a lot less than magnesium oxide. However, your bioavailability is increased. So are we able to utilize more of that 50 to 55 milligrams, compared to the bioavailability of the 300 milligrams of magnesium oxide? Another negative, and again, this is a question mark after that, is price. Again, depending on the brand, depending on the formula, because some formulas of magnesium will combine different forms. Different salts, I should say. They combine different salts. But if you're just getting a sole form of magnesium, in general, magnesium citrate is more expensive than magnesium oxide. Another negative question mark for those two is that they can be laxatives. They're what's called osmotic laxatives. So if you're taking a high dose of either one of them, especially with me, a few months ago, I had a colonoscopy, and they give you this solution to drink to make you go to the bathroom, because you got to clean yourself out in order for the doctor to see what's going on down there, up there, something like that. But you're taking this bolus amount of magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, and what it does is it forces water from the rest of your body into your intestines, and the water in there helps to soften the stool, and then makes you go like number one out the number two, if you get my drift, if you take too much. So that could be a good thing if you're constipated. The osmotic laxative of magnesium, it may be a good thing to make you regular again. If you take too much and you're not constipated, it could be a bad thing, because when it's time to go, it's time to go. So first off, magnesium bisglycinate, aka magnesium bisglycinate. This is because you have magnesium, which again is your alkaline earth metal. It's chelated to two molecules of glycine, an amino acid, hence the bisglycinate. So the chelation is where you have a metal, and then it's bonded on 2 points to an organic molecule. So glycine has carbon in it, so it's an organic molecule, hence chelated. The positive of this is bioavailability increased. And that's because we're using glycine to get through the small intestines. So normally, one of the ways magnesium can get absorbed via the small intestines is what's called paracellular transport. So you have your enterocytes, which is lying in the intestinal epithelium in the small intestine. The magnesium ions will go in between the cells to get to the bloodstream ultimately, which is on the other side via capillaries. But with magnesium glycinate, the body thinks, oh, it's glycine and amino acid. Come on in. And it'll go in via amino acid transporters through the enterocytes. So it's like a Trojan horse. I've heard this before. It's like a Trojan horse. Magnesium's kind of hidden in there. It's going along for the ride. So bioavailability goes up. Now, negative, question mark again, it's about 14% magnesium. So with our 500 milligram capsule of magnesium glycinate, you're getting, 75 or so, if I did my math right, 75 milligrams of actual magnesium. So, yeah, definitely, again, not as high as magnesium oxide, but now you're leveraging the glycine to increase that bioavailability. Another negative is cost. It is more expensive, especially if you get the trademark form, which is called TRAX. I think it's true amino acid chelate, what it stands for. That's going to increase your cost. However, if you can afford it, then it's more bioavailable because it's truly chelated. Okay, the last form we're going to talk about today, and that is magnesium threonate. And that is magnesium in your cation with threonic acid. It's your anion. Now, the huge supposed benefit of magnesium threonate is it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier, the BBB. So the blood-brain barrier, essentially you have capillaries running through the brain. Right? And then lining those capillaries, you have endothelial cells. Right? And then in between those endothelial cells, you have what's called tight junctions. Same thing as in the intestines, the small intestine we talked about, going in between the enterocytes, magnesium. Well, there's tight junctions in the blood-brain barrier, and that helps to prevent substances from going in between those cells because you don't want diseases, pathogens, potential toxins, whatever, getting into the brain. You want to protect it. That's why it's called the blood-brain barrier. There's a lot more to it, and I can go over it in more detail if you want. Let me know. But magnesium threonate is supposed, or at least the thinking is that it can actually cross that blood-brain barrier. And doing the research, to the best of my knowledge, or at least what's believed, is it leverages glucose transporters. So there's proteins on the cell that allow glucose to pass through and to get through the cell into the blood, or in this case, from the blood into the brain, because the brain needs a constant supply of glucose. And that magnesium threonate leverages those glucose transporters to be able to get across the blood-brain barrier. So the thinking is that there's a synergistic effect with the magnesium chelated to threonic acid. And the main benefit and the importance of being able to cross the blood-brain barrier is it can help with memory. That's the idea behind it. One of the ways, or one of the way that I read about, which there could be more, is that it helps to increase synaptic plasticity. So what is synaptic plasticity? Well, it's essentially the effectiveness by which neurons talk to one another. I read this analogy in one of the documentations, and I thought it was really made sense. Like, let's say you're in a movie theater and you're sitting next to somebody. If you're going to talk to that person, you wouldn't scream at them because you're watching a movie. You would talk softly. Well, you're supposed to not talk at all. But if you're going to talk, you talk very softly. if you're in a crowded bar and you want to get your friend's attention, you're not going to, hey, John, I'm over here. They can't hear you. You got to speak up. Hey, John, I'm over here. So it helps. Synaptic plasticity essentially makes the communication between the neurons more effective. At least that's what I get from the documentation. And with regards to memory, the synaptic plasticity is supposed to be taking place as we're learning things. So it helps to increase memory. So that's the positive with magnesium threonate. Negative is it's about 7 to 8% elemental magnesium. So the 500 milligram capsule, the example that we've been using throughout the episode of magnesium threonate, is about 40 milligrams of actual magnesium. But again, it's this synergistic effect that's supposed to be effective for memory. The threonic acid and magnesium together. And another negative, just like with magnesium glycinate, is magnesium threonate is more expensive, especially if you get, I think it's Magtein, Magtein. I'll put it up here in case I spell it wrong. I guess I need more magnesium threonate. But Magtein is like the trademark version of it. It's going to be a lot more expensive. We get to the conclusion. We're going to wrap this up. So which form to take? So it really depends. It depends on, again, what you're using it for, how much you can afford. I know for me, I would take magnesium glycinate, and I would find one, and I'll actually put it here. There's a brand called Thorne. They make magnesium bisglycinate. It is the Trax trademark form, true amino acid chelate. That's what I would take. Again, it's more expensive, so it depends on how much you can afford. If money is an option, which it is definitely, because supplements can be expensive, then something like a magnesium citrate. Start off with a low dose. You don't want to definitely start with a high dose because, again, it can cause you to go to the bathroom. But take a low dose and then slowly increase it. See where you get. Now, again, you can take too much magnesium. It can cause you to go to the bathroom. There's also other side effects of too much magnesium. I believe it's called hypermagnesemia. You definitely don't want to get that. So yeah, it just depends. So that's pretty much it, folks. I cannot think of anything else that I want to talk about in this episode. So again, if you have any questions, comments on this, if there's a specific form of magnesium you want me to go over, or you want me to go into more detail on what I talked about, or maybe something I didn't talk about, let me know. It may take me a little bit because I do a lot of research with a limited amount of time, but I will follow up with the video because I really enjoy it. You guys are really pushing me to expand my knowledge on it, and I love it. I love learning about this stuff. So yeah, that's it. Thanks again for the question. Take care, everybody.